Welcome! Today's is Saturday, August 22nd, 2026. Jack Storm. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Jack Storm, and this is the World Today, only on L Radio Phoenix. From Washington to Wall Street, from Latin America to the Caribbean, and from the world's battlefields to the biggest stadiums, these are the stories you need to know. Let's get right to it. Top world story: U.S. and Iran, a war with global consequences. We begin with the story dominating international headlines: the continuing conflict between the United States and Iran. President Donald Trump is once again threatening additional economic pressure against countries and companies doing business with Iran, while negotiations aimed at ending the conflict remain uncertain. Iran says it will not simply accept Washington's demands. And one of the biggest questions hanging over the international economy is the Strait of Hormuz. The waterway is one of the world's most important energy corridors, and disruptions there have already sent oil prices higher. Reuters reports that crude oil was headed for a second consecutive weekly gain as the conflict continued to restrict supplies and investors worried about further disruption. That means this isn't just a story about Washington and Tehran. It's a story about your gas tank, transportation costs, inflation, and the price of goods around the world. If oil stays elevated, airlines, trucking companies, manufacturers, and consumers all eventually feel it. And that makes the next round of negotiations extremely important. Washington judge blocks immigrant visa suspension. A federal judge has dealt the Trump administration another legal setback. A New York judge has struck down the administration's suspension of immigrant visa processing affecting applicants from 75 countries. The administration argued that the policy was necessary for national security and immigration purposes. The court disagreed. The ruling could affect thousands of people waiting to legally immigrate to the United States. And once again, immigration is becoming a major political and legal battleground in Washington. This case is expected to continue through the courts. Politics, Trump and the midterms. President Trump is also heading toward the 2026 midterm elections with several major foreign policy challenges still unresolved. Iran remains a costly confrontation. The war in Ukraine continues, and Gaza remains unresolved. Those international issues are increasingly becoming domestic political issues as Americans debate military spending, energy prices, immigration, and the overall direction of the U.S. foreign policy. The political question for Republicans and Democrats is increasingly the same. What does all of this mean for the American voter? Because eventually, foreign policy shows up at the gas station and at the grocery store. Money and finance. Wall Street ends a difficult week. Now let's talk money. Wall Street finished the week under pressure as investors continued watching oil prices, government bond yields, and the Iran conflict. Global stocks have struggled as investors worry that higher energy prices could push inflation higher. At the same time, bond markets are sending another warning signal. Long-term U.S. Treasury yields have climbed to levels not seen in years, increasing the cost of borrowing for governments, businesses, and consumers. That matters because Treasury yields influence everything from mortgages to corporate borrowing. And here's the simple version. When borrowing gets more expensive, the economy usually slows down. Investors are also watching the Federal Reserve very closely for clues about future interest rate decisions. The market is trying to answer one question: will inflation force the Fed to keep rates higher for longer? For homeowners, businesses, and anybody carrying debt, that's a question worth paying attention to. Energy oil, the number everyone is watching. Let's stay with the economy. Oil. The price of crude has become one of the most important economic stories in the world. The reason is simple. Oil touches almost everything. You use gasoline. Trucks use diesel. Airplanes use jet fuel. Factories use energy. And virtually everything you buy has to be transported. So when oil rises, the effect can eventually ripple through the entire economy. And that's why markets are watching the Strait of Hormuz almost as closely as they're watching Washington and Tehran. Latin America. Brazil. Lula leads as election approaches. Now let's head south. Brazil is moving toward another major presidential election, and President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva remains at the center of the political battle. Recent polling shows Lula maintaining a lead over Flavio Bolsonaro. But Brazil's election is about much more than personalities. Voters are dealing with economic growth, crime, government spending, inflation, and Brazil's relationship with the United States and China. Brazil is the largest economy in Latin America. What happens there affects the entire region, and Washington is paying close attention. Mexico, cartels, politics, and Washington. Mexico is dealing with its own political controversy. Sinaloa Governor Ruben Rocha Moya has returned to office after taking leave amid allegations from U.S. officials connecting him to cartel activity. Rocha has denied wrongdoing. The controversy highlights one of the most difficult issues facing Mexico. How do you fight organized crime while maintaining political stability and national sovereignty? And for Washington, the Mexican drug trade remains a major concern. The relationship between the United States and Mexico is increasingly tied to three issues: trade, immigration, and organized crime. Those three subjects will remain major stories throughout the rest of 2026. Panama Canal watches El Niño. And there's another important Latin American story with global consequences. The Panama Canal is preparing to limit daily ship traffic because of concerns surrounding a severe El Niño event. That matters far beyond Panama. The canal is one of the world's most important trade routes. Any reduction in shipping capacity can increase transit costs and create delays. And scientists are warning that this year's powerful El Niño could have significant consequences for agriculture, water supplies, and energy production across Latin America. Caribbean, Haiti, security, and humanitarian crisis. Now to the Caribbean. Haiti remains one of the region's biggest humanitarian and security challenges. Gang violence, political instability, and a lack of basic services continue to make life extremely difficult for millions of Haitians. And Haiti's problems don't stop at the border. They affect migration throughout the Caribbean and into the United States. For Florida, Haiti is especially important because of the enormous connection between South Florida and the Haitian community. This is a story we will continue watching closely. Venezuela. And Venezuela remains another major focus of U.S. policy in the Western Hemisphere. Washington continues increasing its political and military attention on Latin America. The Trump administration has made combating drug trafficking and expanding U.S. influence in the region a major priority. And Venezuela's relationship with China adds another layer to the story. For Washington, this isn't simply about Venezuela. It's about who has influence in the Western Hemisphere. Sports world. Soccer. Now let's get to sports. And what a year it has been for international soccer. The 2026 World Cup is now in the history books, but the controversy surrounding the tournament hasn't ended. FIFA has announced disciplinary action following the post-match confrontation after the World Cup final. Argentina midfielder Leandro Paredes has been suspended for 10 matches, while teammate Noel Molina received a 7-match suspension. Argentina was also fined. And the controversy is now spilling into a larger debate about FIFA leadership and governance. Premier League. And in England, Hull City is back in the Premier League, and they made quite an entrance. Hull stunned Manchester United 2-0 in their return to the Premier League after a 9-year absence. For Manchester United, it's an embarrassing opening result. For Hull City, it's a dream start. Boxing. And a tragic story from the world of boxing. Former world champion Zolani Lastborn Tete has been shot and killed outside his home in South Africa. Tete was a former 2-weight world champion and a respected figure in international boxing. His death is being investigated by South African authorities. A tragic reminder that even champions aren't immune to the violence affecting communities around the world. Little League World Series. And here in the United States, the Little League World Series is underway in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Young athletes from around the world are competing for the championship, and Saturday's schedule features a full slate of games. It's one of those sporting events that reminds us what sports are supposed to be about: competition, family, community, and kids chasing a dream. The big picture. So let's put today's headlines together. The world is dealing with a complicated mix of problems: war, energy, inflation, immigration, political divisions, organized crime, climate pressure, and economic uncertainty. And increasingly, these stories are connected. A war thousands of miles away can raise oil prices. Higher oil prices can increase inflation. Inflation can influence interest rates. Interest rates affect mortgages and businesses. And all of that eventually becomes an issue in an election. That's why understanding the news means looking beyond the headline. And that's your World News Update. I'm Jack Storm. We've covered Washington, Wall Street, the Middle East, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the world of sports. The world is moving quickly. We'll keep watching it. We'll keep asking questions. And we'll bring you the stories that matter without forgetting the people behind them. I'm Jack Storm. This is L Radio Phoenix. Your music, your community, your world. Stay informed, stay curious, and stay with us.